We doing a test or
All right, what's up? How's it going, dude?
good? How are you, man?
Good. So I am gonna go ahead and share my screen, but thanks for coming on and talking to us today about debt. We love us dentists love our debt. So
Yeah, that's why you get so much of it.
okay, can you see that?
Yes,
Okay. Hopefully everybody on the other end can as well. Still good?
yes, everything's good.
All right. Nice. Um, just gonna drag that down to the bottom. Okay. So today for our meeting, we are going to talk about just our debt, student debt. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the debt of business ownership if that's something that you want to go and pursue? Um, but yeah, today we have on our guest speaker, Cody Williams, and I'll let him introduce himself, but we're just gonna do a little introduction and then hop right into it. So
Yeah,
Cody,
I'm happy to do that, and and I appreciate the opportunity again to speak for the group. It was an awesome opportunity to come down last October and meet everybody. Awesome turnout, really good participation from all the members. Now, as far as my background, just so we know what we're going to be talking about today with the debt, I've been a financial advisor for about 5 or 6 years.
okay.
And with that, met with thousands of different clients, different types of wealth situations and debt situations, business owners and individuals. And we mostly focus on dentists, fellows, residents, and general physicians and specialists in all degrees. And that's kind of why we're here today to talk about how student loans might be, or not student loans, sorry, business loans outside of student loans might could be helpful depending on the person. But I wanted to preface before going into anything else that I'm a financial advisor. I'm a licensed financial advisor, and it's when we're going to talk about tax stuff, we're going to talk about debt. Uh, the best person to go to for information on debt is a lender, and the best person to go through for taxes is a CPA, a licensed CPA. I'm not a licensed CPA or a lender, so everything that I share is both anecdotal and informational, and I'm not giving financial advice.
Okay. Cool.
There's my protect my butt disclosure.
That's awesome. That being said, basically you are not just some random guy that we picked up off the street. You know money, you know how to manage it, and you're a good resource to get some advice from. So we're excited to have you on. So the first kind of topics that we wanted to talk about, I'm gonna play the devil's advocate a little bit in this interview. Some of this stuff I know, some of this stuff, our viewers might know, they might not know. I'm just gonna run with the assumption that they don't really know, so that we can all make sure that we understand it by the end of this. So yeah, the first few questions are what you can see on your screen. Can you just give us a simple definition of debt and what that is?
Yeah, and there's really two ways we can look at it. If we're using debt to better ourselves, most people will call it leverage. A lot of business owners call it leverage, and think of it as a tool to springboard you into further success. That's if we use debt the right way, and that's the way that really it should be used. Leverage. Now, then there's basic bad consumer debt, which is what most people think of when they hear debt. And the Dave Ramsey is out there. Uh, Most people are taught don't get into debt. Well, there's some truth to that, but it's not always the case. So I'd say, so long as we're using it as leverage and we have an actionable plan on how to use that leverage, debt can be a fantastic tool. Equally, if we don't have a plan and we don't use it for leverage, it will destroy our finances. So there's actually kind of a tightrope walk we have to make in order to use it effectively.
Interesting. So, like you're saying, there are two general realms of debt, right? The ones where we're just being irresponsible, purely irresponsible debt, this having bad habits, and kind of what we stereotypically think of as debt. And then the other side of it is debt that, like you said, is that leverage, that thing that can be used as a tool to give us access to cash flow pretty quickly.
Totally. Yeah. And to be honest, I mean, I have 300 clients. I've done thousands of meetings over the last 5 years, 6 years, and I can't tell you how many people are in bad debt. And it all kind of stems from we want what we really can't have, and we'll often spend more than what's available. So those who aren't in bad debt, it's few and far between. But oftentimes, yeah, that's kind of a big destroyer of a financial plan. Is bad debt. But you nailed it on the head. Good debt is a great tool for cash flow.
Cool. Okay. Well, I guess that answers our first question, and we will go ahead and start moving on to these next ones. Sorry, I got to keep moving this guy around. Okay. So yeah, I guess would you classify student loans as that good debt or in that bad debt category?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and you're going to hear this. You're going to hear this a lot today, and I'm sorry to the viewers. Every time you meet with a financial advisor, a good one's going to say, "It depends."
Hmm.
And it depends is my favorite thing to say because it really does. Every situation is different. Student loans are different for different people. Um, we all know somebody who's gone to school for 8 years and took them 8 years to get their undergrad in something that they might not even work in. They might get a communications degree and then go work in heck uh, finance. It's one of those deals where did that really help you get to where you need to be? As far as dentists go, student loans I think are a fantastic tool because you're going into a field that you know is lucrative, where you're going to be earning most than the average individual by a large margin. So if we can acquire one, two, $300,000 of student loan debt to get to that level of income, absolutely it's worth it. It's just a matter of what you do with it. Again, that's leverage. If we're using it for our benefit, it's good. If we're not using it for our benefit, it's bad, right? And it doesn't produce future cash flows. So that's my answer of kind of how I see student loans, and others might disagree. But
Interesting. Okay. So how do student loans, like structurally and fundamentally, how do student loans differ from other kinds of debt? So are there different systems in play with student loans that make it easier or more difficult to deal with?
yes, yeah, and probably everyone who's watching this has acquired a student loan. And the funny thing is, most people who are watching this probably couldn't get a house or a mortgage, or it might be hard to get a good interest rate on a car, or it might be hard to qualify for even a credit card. And that's kind of I mean, it's a kind of double-edged sword. It's like cool, we have access to funds that can springboard us into a great career, but at the same time, why are these institutions giving us so much money without teaching us how to manage it properly? So it is scary, but also good. So long as we use it effectively. And I see student loan debt as, I mean, you can save for dental school, and if your dental, let's say your undergrad plus dental school tuition, housing, everything costs 300 grand. I mean, if you say, I don't want student loans, sure, you can go work a $50,000 job a year, entry level job, and work not just for 6 years because you got to pay taxes and you got to live on that money. So
Mhm.
maybe you work for 10 years and you can finally save your 300 grand. Well, guess what? Tuition's gone up to 400,000 because you've waited so long to go. So it's like student loans in this day and age, I know old school way of thinking was like, don't use loans, don't use debt. But nowadays, with the way interest rates are changing, inflation is changing, if we can top on an opportunity and leverage that opportunity, loans can really help. So that's my 2 cents.
Right. I think that it's interesting because even at our school, we have faculty that are teaching us that they went to the same school in the 80s. And the tuition at that time was $300.
Oh,
Um,
per year?
yeah. So I know it's wild. And like I think that it's a very fair thing to be so nervous and freaked out by the growth that student loans, especially in the dental industry, has had in the, I don't know, last 2 decades, last 3 decades.
Mm,
It's just exploded. Um, And so it's kind of funny because we'll get advice from people from our school, but they paid like an acorn and two apples for their dental education. And
Yeah.
it's a completely different scenario, a different set of circumstances.
Well,
So
it's the same people that said, save cash for your house, because there was a time where you could buy a house for 50 grand.
right.
I know a couple who bought a foreclosure for 50 grand and it's worth $1 million now, back in like 2001. So yeah, things are just different.
Right. Things are different now.
Yeah.
Um, well, okay. So what would you say some of the disadvantages of having a student loan is? Is there a disadvantage to the student loans
Yeah.
besides the not utilizing them in your career?
Oh, I guess not. I guess not. It's if we don't leverage the education that we spent to learn, then yeah, it's a huge disadvantage and a big waste of money. And like for example, I got a business degree. Could I have learned more about business than spending on tuition by starting a business? Probably. That's one of those things where a master's of business administration, probably not good to get student loans for, because start a business and you'll learn some more than just going to school. But in this case with dental school, I don't see any downside unless you said I'm not going to be a dentist
Hmm.
at the end of it. Right.
Cool. Well, hopefully, I mean, everyone that should be viewing this is either in dental school. Well, yeah, pretty much everybody's in dental school. So hopefully they've thought about that prior to actually jumping into getting into this.
Unless this becomes a giant podcast and we topple Joe Rogan and you're said, then we're breaching industries, not just dentistry.
Maybe in our next interview. We'll see.
Yeah.
See.
Yeah.
So, okay. So running with the assumption that the student debt that we are all taking out right now, these student loans, is useful for us. What is the best way to pay them off? And like you said before, I'm going to assume that your answer is going to be it depends.
Yep. On every slide pretty much. But yeah, I'll say that and then I'll give my real answer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So good question. Should I pay him off as fast as I can? And this is where it's going to die. I'm not going to give a cookie cutter answer, which is a lot of financial gurus will give. It's like, get out of debt as fast as possible. And again, it just depends on the situation. It depends on your goals. If we're going into practice ownership, should we be siphoning more of our money into the practice? If a house is really important and necessary to you, should we be siphoning money there? Kids' education, retirement. There's maybe helping your parents retire. There's a lot of areas that might be more important than paying off student loans fast. And the nice thing about most student loans, at least in the last decade or two, is interest rates have been incredibly low. Now we're entering a higher interest rate environment where my opinions might change. If student loan interest rates are running into the 12, 13, 15%, yeah, we might say pay those off as soon as you can. But still, as we stand, interest rates are relatively low for student loans. So it's a low cost of entry and it's a low cost to pay off. If we're not going to pay that much interest over the course of 10, 20, 30 years, and you can use your money for other things in the meantime, and that money can grow on itself more than the student loan interest is growing, then it's going to be more effective to put your money towards something that will make your money grow. Again, it'll just depend on the situation. And that's where meeting with an advisor is really good to identify what's the best thing for you.
Interesting. So if I'm understanding it correctly, sometimes the major decision that you're making off of when I should pay it off, when I shouldn't, is one would be like your plans for the future. If you are planning to get into business ownership, if you're planning to own a home, if you're planning any of these other big financial decisions. And then another portion of it, another big chunk of it is what is the interest rate on those? How quickly is it growing, essentially, right? So if they seem to be at this lower, more stable rate, then it's not necessarily that important to pay them off immediately if you have other things that are growing at faster rates. That's what you're saying?
Totally, yes. And there's a principle called arbitrage that's used in finance, but really what it means is, hey, if we can borrow money at a low cost, so let's say you borrow $1 million at 1% interest, so that's $10,000 a year is what it costs to borrow that million. But
Right.
you can invest that million and make $30,000 a year off of it. Well, that $1 million you borrowed, yeah, sure, you owe it back and it costs you 10 grand a year, but you're making 30 off of it. Well, you're making a $20,000 net gain. There's some arbitrage there. We're making money off of the borrowed money. And in this case, student loans can offer that same advantage. We owe all this money, it costs a certain amount, but we're making way more than that. So, uh, should we prioritize paying it off sooner? Maybe, maybe not.
Interesting. Okay. Um, let's see. I just want to make sure that we look at all the different things that we have here, but
Yeah, I've noticed on the last couple slides that my answers have been so long that it answers all the questions on the page.
yeah, yeah, no, and that's honestly, it's awesome that it seems to kind of flow with everything that we're talking about right now, and I'm glad that that's working out.
Which is totally accidental. I'm not reading the questions beforehand. I'm not like super smart. Yeah, I'm just, I can talk a lot.
You're a wizard, Cody. You're a wizard. Um, so yeah, I think that we've pretty much covered everything here, and I think we'll leave answering this last one for the next slide actually, because we'll get into that a little bit more. The question about whether we should take out more loans to pay off these loans. Specifically, what we're talking about is like in the concept of practice ownership, right? Like, does it actually make sense to take out more loans, go more into debt to try to pay off my debt, right? And so, yeah, I don't know. What's your thought on that?
And the principle you're referring to, right, is should I get even more loans to start a practice? And how is that going to help me to pay off the existing loans? It's like I'm doubling my amount of debt. How is this? Yeah, how is this going to help me? So I love this slide, by the way, because I love memes and I love Tiger King. I love at the end. Should I just drop out and sell my feet pics on OnlyFans? Honestly, there's some. So yeah, yeah. I we have some clients internally that have OnlyFans and they make good money. So maybe that's a maybe that's a good alternative for any dentists who want to stop practicing. But yeah, so again, this is one of those, again, it depends, but diving deeper, I know a lot of entrepreneurs and anybody who's wanting to start a dental practice is an entrepreneur. That's what they are.
Hmm.
They have this specialization with dentistry, but they're making a big risk. Um, Taking out loans to start out a practice, so long as you have an actionable plan, you've met with the proper professionals to map out what exactly you need to do. You have mentors that are most likely dentists who have done it, who've taken loans, who have started a practice. If you have all of these professionals you're consulting before you make the decision and you make an actionable plan, you do the research like John, you do. Uh, and if anyone's seen the research you do, it's, you might say it's almost too much, but that's exactly what you need to do. If you do all that research, then failure is really, really uncommon. It's when people will take these big loans because just because the bank will give you money doesn't mean you should take it. And they'll give you money like this without a plan because you're a dentist and dentistry has a low failure rate in terms of practice ownership compared to other businesses. So if I went out to get a business loan, I couldn't get $300,000 like that, but you guys can. So it's one of those, if we have a plan and we know the pros and cons, absolutely it's a huge, huge tool because you're going to go from, and we'll talk about this in some of the other slides, you'll go from making, 170 grand a year to 500 grand a year potentially. And that can help you pay back your loans that much sooner. So again, I think it's just a form of leverage.
Interesting. Yeah, dentistry is this very interesting field where you do have big, big, big numbers that pop out at you. And the vast majority of us, I would say 99.99999% of dental students and dentists have never worked with and manipulated money, that much money, right? Like those big of numbers, right? hundreds of thousands of dollars is a scary number when you look at it. And it's gotten me a few times. I've been freaked out about it a few different times, right? But we also live in this weird world where business failure as dentists is very low compared to, like, I don't know, talk about the restaurant business. People open up restaurants and close them all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's a scary business to join, restaurant business,
yeah.
for that reason. And that's why banks are in the business of money. And if they lend someone money and they don't get that money back, they lose that money. So if a bank's going to give a dentist money willy-nilly without even really checking anything in their history, it's like, oh, you're a dentist, here's some money, start a practice. I mean, that tells you everything, the faith that the banks have in the system, in the industry of dentistry. So again, I don't think there's a big concern. But it depends on the person. So if you know that you're not the type of person that can get yourself out of bed in the morning, motivate yourself to go out and make whatever needs to happen. If you're like, I can't work on the weekend to make sure my business doesn't fall under, or I can't sacrifice this for my business to succeed. You have to really invest everything in your business for the first few years until it can sustain itself. And if you're willing to make that sacrifice, probability of failure is low. It's just where somebody maybe isn't self-motivating and can't put in that time. Yeah, maybe the business loan shouldn't be something you should take.
Okay. It's a deep question. It's a soul searching question, right?
Yeah.
Getting deep here.
And another question, I mean, sorry, I hope we're doing good on time.
No, you go ahead. You're teaching us.
Okay, cool. So one thing I've seen, I've again, after thousands of meetings, one thing that I hate to see and breaks my heart when I see it is a family that feels stuck. Financially, they're stuck. The cost of everything is rising. I mean, we're all seeing it and feeling it. And those who are in the workforce and earning a wage, they're like, my money's not worth what it was last year. Houses are expensive, food's expensive, gas is expensive. Now, you can make a salary, and that's fine because you get a guaranteed income. It's nice. You know what you're going to make every month. It's easy to budget, easy to plan. Doesn't matter if the business, isn't profitable really, because you'll always get your paycheck. The downside to that is you have to ask for time off. You have to ask for a pay raise. You have to ask to be there for your kids' soccer games. You have to ask to do anything. You're not autonomous. And so what a lot of people hate, and I see a lot of my clients hate, is that they're stuck. There's somebody that's controlling them. They'll never make more than what they're making or make enough to achieve their dreams. And it's like $170,000 seems like a lot. Yes, but $170,000 is not what it was even 10 years ago. It doesn't buy the lifestyle that most people wanting this want. If we want the house, we want to help the kids, and we want to retire, and we want to save, and we want to travel, it's going to take more. So if you want to increase your income a considerable amount to buy the things you want to buy and the experiences you want to buy and spend time with your kids and your family and retire one day, it's like, yeah, you're going to need to make more, and your boss isn't going to give you a $10,000 raise every 3 months. So something to consider. And last thing, it's like, do you really, if you're a business owner, there's a huge risk that you're going to fail. But I'll put it this way. And I've heard this quote. I forgot who said this quote. It's awesome. It helped me make my decision to be a business owner. Some people say you're crazy for starting a business. You never know what you're going to make. But I often say, well, you're crazy for choosing a salary because you've capped yourself and you'll never make more. It's like, do you want the stress of being stuck or the stress of not knowing what you could achieve? And a salary is really just a bribe to give up on your dreams. I think it's an awesome quote. And again, I'm not saying a salary is a bad thing, but for people who are like, I want more, a business will provide you that freedom. So if you can take out $1 million loan and the cost of that loan is low, let's say you get $1 million loan and it's a 5% interest rate on that loan to start your practice. Good. Okay. That's 50 grand a year of interest. That's a lot of interest. But if you can take that $1 million and purchase a practice or shares of a practice, whatever. And that practice is generating $1 million of revenue, and you're able to pocket 500 grand from that. Well, you've effectively increased your income by a large margin. You're making $1 million with your $1 million, and it only costs you 50 grand a year. So you're netting 950 grand, and you can pay for your business, you can pay for taxes, you can pay for the lifestyle you want to live. And it was instant rather than working over the course of your whole career to maybe break 250. And sure, you paid off your student loans. Sure, you never got a business loan, but you'll never reach that point that you probably want to reach.
Interesting. Yeah, by the time that you have saved enough for that, you've aged out of the things that you were trying to accomplish, is essentially what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that's an interesting perspective to have on it. I definitely think that, there's stress behind owning a business. There's stress behind being an associate. I think the reality of dentistry is we sometimes get fooled into this idea that, oh, well, it's just going to be really easy. It's not. We have to work hard at it. And if the dental students are here listening to this, they understand that, dental school itself was a lot harder and it's more different than what they thought it was going to be. Their idealistic thought of what dental school was going to be before they got into it. Similarly, being an associate or being a practice owner, okay, it says we've got 10 minutes left. So maybe what we'll do is we will go ahead and cut it off right here and then meet back up and go through the last few slides.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
if that's okay. But
Yeah.
yeah, since we have 10 minutes, I'll go ahead and, finish my spiel. So I think that anything can be idealized, right? We could make this fairy tale story for any kind of scenario. And the people that are getting out there and saying practice ownership is just the easiest thing in the world and it's just a no-brainer, you should just do it, right? It's not being realistic to the difficulties and the challenges and the stresses that come from practice ownership. But there are benefits to it as well, right? And so you do have to weigh there's an objective way of looking at the benefits and the drawbacks of both. And it's not just this magical guessing game as to which one should I do. You can truly crunch some numbers and sit down and be honest with yourself and try and figure out, okay, will this path work out for me or will it not, right? And I think that's one of the most interesting things that I've come to learn as I start to, dive into learning about business ownership and practice ownership for dentists is I've learned a lot about my own thought process and I've learned a lot about being honest with myself, right? I need to recognize where my weaknesses are, where I could be vulnerable, and it helps me to grow for the future. So, anyways, yeah, I think it's a really cool thing that we have that opportunity to choose the path, one or the other.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have that.
No, no, they don't. And the nice thing is you guys can do both. It's like, and this is what most of the dentists who are clients of mine, they recommend to a young aspiring dentist is, okay, maybe right outside of school, instead of buying a practice day one, work as an associate at another practice, learn the ropes, just see how a practice runs, and ask questions from the dentists, the actual owners, practitioners who uh, have all the answers. So make them your mentor, learn from them, and then learn on their dime. It's expensive to learn on your loan. Why not learn on theirs? They're paying you a salary. It doesn't cost you anything. So learn from them, get your tuition's worth of business experience. And maybe that takes a year or 2 years. And by that point, you'll find out, is this enough? Do I want to grow my income more? Do I want more autonomy? Do I want to control this? And by that point, you'll probably know. And it'll be a much lesser risk than getting right out of dental school and buying a practice right away.
Right. Which there's some Wild West cowboys out there that still do that. I know of a crazy story where two people they purchased a practice while they were still in school.
Oh
They
my
were, they were dental students, and they were having to do their dental school stuff, and then on the side were running a dental practice. And I don't personally suggest that people go out and do that. Seems crazy, wild. I just can't believe that somebody did that. But
That's crazy. But
yeah,
hey, it could work. The probability is just probably lower.
yeah. Okay, well, it's actually is a good spot for us to stop because the next section that we're going to get into actually has we run through scenarios with it and it has real numbers associated with it. So on the side over here, we can see in this column, I did a little bit of research and I pulled these numbers from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics and also the ADEA. That's a dental statistics website. And we're going to kind of run with these numbers and see what it's like to both be an associate and be a practice owner with these two, with the debts, right? And just kind of run through those two scenarios. So this is a good spot to stop because now we're going to get into the more numbers based part in the second section. So, okay,
Awesome.
we'll see you on the
Cool.
other
See you
side.
in a sec. Yeah, see you on the other side.